And Jesus is questioned by the Pharisees why he and the disciples do not fast. He speaks, well, because the bridegroom is here. God himself is in our presence, and so that is a time of joy. But he speaks of the day when they will again fast, when the bridegroom is taken away. And so during this time of Lent, in preparation for Jesus' resurrection, for his return in glory, is a time of fasting. Though part of the reason, too, why Jesus is critical of some of the fasting is because they were really kind of still fasting in some of the ways that were occurring within the Old Testament. And that was also not only criticized by Jesus, but also criticized by the prophet Isaiah in our first reading. It talks about a fasting where the people would go around in sackcloth and ashes and kind of mope around and make sure everybody could see them. Oh, look, they're fasting. Poor them. Look how good they are. Well, that pretty much destroys all the reason for fasting. Takes away all of its worth. But instead, the purpose of fasting, we see in the prophet Isaiah, is for the purpose of freeing up space in our lives to do the works of mercy. So we see this spoken of in this first reading. So what is the fast that is acceptable to the Lord? He says, this is the fasting that I wish. First, to ransom the captive, releasing those bound unjustly, untying the thongs of the yoke, setting free the oppressed, breaking every yoke. Of course, this is precisely the first work of mercy that Jesus himself comes for, of setting us free, of ransoming all of us who are captive in sin. And then he speaks of to feed the hungry, sharing your bread with the hungry. And so too, Jesus came to that. He comes and he shares us the best bread, the bread of life, for which our hearts truly hunger. And then he talks about giving shelter to the homeless, sheltering the oppressed and the homeless, it says, which is, again, what Jesus comes to do. He comes to bring us and open the doors to our heavenly home that we're all made for. And then finally, he doesn't mention all of the works of mercy, but the last one is to give clothing to the naked. Clothing the naked when you see them. So too, Jesus also comes to do that as well. He comes to clothe us with himself, for us to be clothed in Christ, to be covered in his grace. So all the works of mercy that we'll be discussing during this Lenten season, and hopefully attempting to put into practice, is, in a sense, built upon this foundation of the fasting that we do to open our hearts and our lives to have room to be able to do these works of mercy for our brothers and sisters.